Media Center Ukraine Odesa continues its work, and now we are going to discuss the situation in the Black Sea with Pavlo Lakiychuk, the head of security programs at the Center for Global Studies Strategy 2021. Thank you for joining us today. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to Odesa residents. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to heroes. Let's start with the following. Last week, there was a unique special operation to liberate so-called boycott towers. How does it affect the security situation in the Black Sea? Because these towers are now controlled by Ukrainians, and Russians used to use these towers for their objectives, and we can see the result at once. There was the revelation of boycott towers, and then there was attack on the repair factory, actually damaging the submarine of the Russian Federation, and big landing ship from the Baltic fleet that was brought here to the Black Sea. It was the specific tasks, and that were the first results. And today in the morning, Bulker left one of the ports in the Odesa region with the Ukrainian grain heading to the Bosphorus. So the liberation of the so-called boycott towers can resume grain corridor grain initiative without Russia. So we just don't need Russia in it. And I don't like the term grain corridor without Russia. Why are we talking only about grain corridor, but what about other commodities that could be exported or from or imported to Ukraine? Now, other commodities are also important, and free navigation should also cover other commodities. I would like to name it a transport corridor that starts functioning between Ukraine and the rest of the world without involvement of Russia. Russia is only involved through shelling and its attempts pirate ship in the Black Sea. What about the Royal Air Force patrols in the Black Sea? How does it change the situation? Is Russia afraid of attacking vessels? And the British, they just exaggerate their role. Because actually, since in 2017, the British started those Royal Air Force patrols in the airspace of Romania and over the territorial waters of Romania. And this mission resembles the mission of NATO aimed at protecting the Baltic Sea countries, the Baltic patrols. And back in 2017, the Royal Force patrols were seen in the airspace of Romania, including over the Romanian territorial waters. And we informed our partners about the possibility to shift those transport corridors to the territorial waters of the neighboring countries, and they agreed with this, including Romania, Turkey, and British aviation just protects that corridor as well. And Britons always support free navigation in the whole world. It is a very important marker of democracy for them. and also the marker of existence of free states in the world. This is an important key aspect for them. They also support the free navigation in the Black Sea. We can remember the past passage of Defender near the Crimean coast. That was kind of a demonstrative act challenging occupiers. And Russians actually, so to say, listened to Brits, and they are afraid they're afraid of escalation. Of course, we see that Russia is rather a daredevil, and we can see the amount of incidents between the Russian fire jets and the vessels in these areas, in neutral waters, and the Russians tried to provoke conflicts, but still the situation is still under control. There are no significant fights in this area. But we should also remember about the drones attacks on the territory of Romania as an indirect consequences of Russia's attack on our Danube ports. And this is already a challenge for our neighbors. Romania has already started consultations with their NATO allies in line with Article 4 of the NATO Charter. Bulgaria has also started consultations because of the closure of its big part of its free economic zone, the sea economic zone in the Black Sea by Russians under the occasion of exercises. So this is also an example of provocation, and I cannot forecast the future developments in the Black Sea, but our task at the moment is just to repel the attacks of Russia. And Russians can be also see not in northwest Black Sea, but in the south part, which is closer to Bosphorus, where we can see Russia's piracy attacks on civilian vessels of different countries in attempt to provoke a conflict. And only Ukrainian drones can prevent such attacks in the future. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine has informed that recently two pirate vessels have been attacked, patrol boats of Buyan class, Vasil Bykov and Kotov. But they are under constant attack, and one of them was heavily damaged, and it is being towed in Sevastopol. And also, recently, they brought to Sevastopol the new flagship of the Black Sea Fleet that received its status after the Moscow cruiser was sunk here. Missile carrier Samur was also towed to Sevastopol, so it was also damaged. So our task is to fight our enemy. To drive the enemy away from the international transport corridors. These are Russian pirates, and we should deal with them, and this is our obligation. After attacks on ships of Russian pirates, as you call them, can we expect decreased frequency of caliber attacks? Could they bring their ships even further? But they have already started that process long ago. We can see the development of the situation in North and West Black Sea, the infrastructure of Chernomornaftogaz, and we also call them Boykos Towers. This is one of the steps to drive enemy from our territory, from our Crimea. We also attack military bases and military facilities in Crimea, and Russians cannot feel calm in our Sevastopol. They used to have the bone gates at entry to the big harbor of Sevastopol. And we can see now how they protect that area. They also have limitations in using the base in Novorossiysk, but they try to scatter in the sea, and they believe that it will be safer for them at the sea compared to harbors, but this is not the truth, because the recent events show that we can also reach them there. But and we can see that enemy tries to flee, not from Crimea in general, but the enemy tries to hide its fleet for it not to be attacked by Ukrainians. A friend of mine, he likes to joke. And recently he has joked and he asked me why Russians cannot attack our ships, because we don't have ships. So they're no targets, but they have so many ships that we can always strike one of them. Of course, this is just a joke. The situation is not that simple. But it is difficult for Russians to protect their big fleet. During the Second World War in Germany, they had 2 dreadnoughts. And after the first was sunk, and Hitler was really proud of that ship, he valued it a lot. But after the first one was drowned, the second one was not used in the base, and it was sunk by Allies aircraft closer to the end of the war. We should do the same with the Black Sea Fleet, for them just to be afraid to go to the sea, because they could be sunk there. And we also need to destroy their bases in Novorossiysk and in some other places. And there are constant attacks on Crimea, on the fleet of the Russian Federation. Can we expect that with time we will be able to force Russia to take the whole of its fleet from Crimea, and also to take all of Russia's military from Crimea to send it to another place? As for the fleet, our president stated it yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. He said that all terrorist forces will be destroyed. The question is about time and distance. Our tasks are clear and well articulated, but we need to understand that the fleet is just a small part of the armed forces. For the UK, the situation is different. For the United States, the situation is different as well. these are like more like island states, and for them the fleet is an important part of their armed forces. But here we have a continental war. That's why the role of the fleet is somewhere on the third place. We should be more focused on ground forces and support of the ground forces in hostilities and some other tasks. And the main burden of military activity and the main importance here is infantry. Regardless of the strength of the fleet or air forces, I'd like to remind that in 2008, when Russia attacked Georgia, and a lot of fake stories told back then by the journalists of Russian newspapers, the liars, the voices of Russian propaganda. And they told different fake stories about sea battles when Mirage destroyed Georgian boats carrying missiles. But back then the Georgian fleet was rather small and it was destroyed. But it was destroyed by special forces, which were the part of infantry, and that were entered Bereg port on foot. And this could be done the same to the Black Sea Fleet, that our infantry could destroy it from land. They are very courageous people, which are the basis of our defense and the basis of the liberation of our land. Those explosions in Sevastopol have two objectives. The first one is to protect our transport corridors and to create conditions for export and import operations involving our ports. To protect Ukrainian infrastructure from the Russian missiles and drones like Shaheds. And the second objective is to create preconditions for our ground forces that continue its offensive to liberate the south of Ukraine. And to do this, we need to destroy infrastructure at the home front of our enemy. And Crimea is one of the hubs of supply chain. And it is very inconvenient for Russians. And now they can understand that to supply ammunition, fuel, lubricants for their forces fighting in the south of our state, they need to go a long way through Kuban, Kerch Bridge through the whole Crimea, then again bridges like in Cherhan, and after such long logistics, they can deliver these supplies or what is left to the front line. And our task is to attack the whole chain, to decrease the amount of cargo and people aimed at the south of our country. And one more fear of the Black Sea Fleet of Russia, these are our sea drones. We can talk a lot about sea drones. The sea, so to say, kamikaze drones, combat drones. This is our know-how. And it is not only about the fact that we find a solution how to put explosives to such drones, but the armed forces of Ukraine, the defense forces of Ukraine, have developed the tactics how to use in full such means. On the eve of the full-scale invasion, like 2-3 years before the full-scale invasion, the Navy of Ukraine discussed the future development of the naval forces of Ukraine to use corvettes of frigates or to develop a so-called mosquito fleet containing of small boats. And the army of these boats can destroy the Black Sea Fleet of Russia. But we didn't have enough time for opting to one of or another objective. And we had limited resources. We had to quickly try to destroy our enemy. But then we invented a new way of combat activity to use drones, and I believe that this is the natural development of the concept of mosquito fleet, or the army of drones, as it is called by our president, and our servicemen like such name. So the whole of Ukraine collects money for sea drones. So this is a people's fleet. And with every attack, we managed to improve our tactics for these drones. If you can remember May of last year, when a drone just fell down on the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol, and the Russians were shocked. And in 3 or 4 months, the main base of the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol was attacked by coordinated group of sea drones and UAVs. And now we can see recently well-planned, detailed operations using different types and kinds of means, including missiles, sea drones, UAVs, reconnaissance drones, piloted airplanes, and special operation officers. So this is a full-scale operation. And you can remember how it was during the World War II, when they used the divisions, regiments to attack enemy's bases, and it was really very difficult to coordinate. Activities of such a big number of means, having the same target. But now you can imagine that 90% of, so to say, crews of these UAVs and drones are somewhere sitting in front of monitors of computers, and they manage the attack. So they operate all these means remotely. And this is a very important breakthrough in tactics of the war at sea, and not only at sea. And the world has already been scrutinizing activities in Ukraine. And after the war, we can expect a great number of books analyzing these books for servicemen. for the military. Pavlo, thank you very much for joining us today and for joining the work of Media Center Ukraine Odesa. That was Pavlo Lakiychuk, Head of Security Programs at the Center of Global Studies, Strategy 21. This is the last briefing for today.